Welcome to Discerning News, where we bring you current stories from a bigger picture perspective. The purpose is to inspire clarity and enthusiasm for your unique journey.
Well, here we are, number 16.
It's been 4 months. 4 months.
1 and 6 is a 7.
That's right. 7 number, introspection. That
Right.
used to be the holy number that they choose the.
Is that what we do here, introspection?
That's right. We're all holy people, and the people listening must be holy too.
The 7-11.
WHOL.
Whole.
That's right. Not O. All right. Well, I think that what I'm going to do this time is I have actually a series of news stories that I want to share about. And because to me, they're all collectively starting to say something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to start actually in New Zealand. A lot of the international
Kiwis. Love
Kiwis. The international date line is really close there. And, kind of that new wave of energy comes in there. So that's sometimes is indicative. And I think, Tom, you've talked about how markets, you judge the markets sometimes in these Australia and New Zealand, because that's the early, if you can see how it's going there, you can judge it how it's going to be in bigger economies.
Right.
And
So
so
it's
forth.
smaller, that they can try things in
Yeah.
those markets and see how they go.
So a lot of emerging things there. So there's a couple things there. One of them is the big one over there was they just, the parliament over there just voted down this bill that was equalization bill. And it had to do with, I don't know, most people who aren't traveled to New Zealand or know about it, is the Maoris. They actually have a treaty, a deal that was done when the British were colonizing over there. And they were one of the few places in the world that weren't fully conquered, right? There's a handful of other places around the world that weren't fully conquered, and New Zealand is one of them. They just,
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
and that's where they have that big,
The
and
haka.
the haka and all that good stuff. But
So
beyond
you
that, I
said
mean,
they weren't fully conquered?
they were not. So
Okay.
the British couldn't beat them, basically, and so instead they just created a treaty, right?
Okay.
So that's how they've been operating for this many years. And so the latest thing was they were going to have this bill brought up to have more of an equalization, because there's a lot of the New Zealand, everyone's a New Zealander, but the Maoris have this treaty so that they have special privileges per se. And I don't mean that like they have privileges that other people don't get per se, but they're addressed, right? So like if the American Indians weren't beaten and a treaty was formed, there would have been like this, okay, they're a part of the deal, but they have separate legal rights here. They have inclusive legal rights, and they're mentioned. So that bill, which was voted down, was going to start talking about making things everybody the same, right? So that was voted down. The other part of New Zealand is that they just had a thing where there was a challenge on the vaccine mandate for the military. A couple of people in the military didn't want to do that COVID vaccine. And the courts just said that now the military is allowed to do that. You lost your case. So
Wait a minute. So you're saying that the military, so they have to be
they
vaccinated?
have to be vaccinated. If you're in the military, you have to be vaccinated. That's their rules.
Wow. Okay.
Right. And so that was like that. And then the third part of New Zealand that stood out to me was Walgreens, or they were familiar with Walgreens. If you travel, it's
Drugstore.
the drugstore. Well, it's a supermarket.
Oh, right.
well.
Yeah. Right.
Over here, here in America, it's.
Are you
it's
sure it's the Walgreens? Isn't it Woolworth?
Woolworth? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not Walgreens. Woolworth. Excuse me.
Woolworth.
See,
Woolworth.
this is why it's a team. And their company is reorganizing, so they're going to shut down a couple places to reorganize and so forth. All right. So there's just a few other stories that I'm going to talk about. One's in the EU, but where I'm going with this and why that stood out to me was because a lot of the traditional stuff is getting challenged. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the green room. We were just talking about how we're in this amazing time where things are shifting. So to me, all this is indicative, whether it stays in the tradition or whether it moves forward, it's being questioned. Things are being brought up. And to me, this is awesome. Not because a lot of the people who are getting challenged, they don't like that, right? I know for myself, when I get challenged, I don't like it. But the awesome part about it is it helps me review my ideas. It helps me review where I'm at. And so even if I'm going to stay with my concepts and ideas, my habits, my patterns, it's bringing me back to, okay, do I really want that? Right. And if, like, for the New Zealand thing, it was like, there was like this overwhelm. It was like, I don't know, 100 some votes to like 11, to maintain this legal status. Basically, it's a legal status that the Maoris have rather than Parliament has that power to
Gotcha.
adjust things. That's kind of the nuts and bolts.
And so they want the Maori to be able to keep the same legal status that they've had
based on the
as
treaty,
opposed to just pulling them in to be just
under the rules of Parliament.
Yeah. Okay. That's a well said. Okay. Under the rules of
so that was that
New Zealand citizen.
That challenge was voted down. Therefore, they now have they maintain what they've always had.
Okay.
Right. So overwhelmingly.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it just shows, okay, the people are saying, no, we want this, right? For good or bad, we want this. That's a majority. So to me, this is all about saying we're in this amazing time of shifts. It's happening everywhere. Right. I mean, the Americans with the new government, and the Trump thing, and, and the EU now is having their up. I'll go into that later. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line of what I'm going to just talk with you all is it's just, to me, showing that the tradition must be challenged. For me, my traditions have to be challenged to make sure it's for me. Otherwise, I'm not going to get what I want. Does that all make sense?
It makes sense, but it's definitely a whole bunch of stuff there.
Oh, yeah. It's
like you brought in 3 different unique things. And so the keys that I picked up on was about bringing equilibrium.
Yeah.
So irregardless of, you mentioned, let's see, the vaccine thing, you mentioned the Woolworths, and then you mentioned the Maori.
Yeah.
And so all of those to me are different variations of, I like you said, keeping traditions and then shifting traditions so much that it really shakes up everything.
Yeah.
So that equilibrium portion is, I think, important, especially in the spiritual perspective, because of the fact that it allows everyone to have a different variation of, well, yeah, I want that and I don't want that. And also feeling that they're getting something, mm-hmm. even though they might be something else might be changing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it really gives a sense of to peace to some people. Yeah. But yet other people, like, you're going to be upset the fact that, I've got to get a vaccination and I'm in the military, but that's believe me, as a military, and Tiger, because mm-hmm. you were in Navy, you go through and you have to get the vaccines, and they don't question you. You can't question it at all.
No.
You're giving them. And I know people that have been, affected by, especially the ones that were given over in Desert Storm, because there were a lot of different ones, anthrax and all that kind of stuff. But so that's what comes to me about that is giving both sides, whatever side you're on these different, different types of scenarios, the opportunity to go, okay, I feel peace with that, or, I'm getting shaken up by that.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Does
that make
100%.
sense, Tom?
Yes.
Oh, yes. What is that? What part of that makes sense to you? Because I don't know. I'm like I said, it was 3 different scenarios for sure.
Well, what I hear everybody saying, and the picture that I get mm-hmm. is just that these things are at least being reviewed and opened up. The book's being opened. We're looking at it. It's interesting how the traditions are being maintained in those particular areas.
Yeah.
And I think that's a healthy process. I'm sure that some of the folks are probably unhappy with some of those decisions, and some folks are happy with the decisions. But that's the process that we live in, the political. What's great is that, we get to take a look at those things and reevaluate every so often, so that if there's something that does need to be changed, it will change once people are ready for the
Right.
change, or it's truly needed. The thing that I notice is that we wait and we wait and we wait before we finally change something. We almost wait till the big disaster hits, and then we go
Yeah.
and we want to change something. And if you try to change things before the disaster strikes, you get a lot of rebellion.
Yeah.
So it's about right timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, with those three particular stories, I don't have enough facts, or I don't have a real harsh, clear opinion about it. But those are my comments about change and tradition. And I guess what I'd like to share is something about tradition, is that I've been working with my dad's estate recently to go over some last, things that he had that, and distribute them among relatives and so forth. And one of the things I was aware of was just the thoughts that I had that were traditional thoughts, you might say, typical thoughts I've had throughout my life about various people, various things, an idea of fairness, idea of unfairness. And I recognized an opportunity to let some of those concepts I had about fairness go. And I really worked with my guidance. And I remember I said to my spiritual helpers, I go, really, I've got, 8, 9 or so. Am I counting right? I guess
siblings.
8 siblings. Yes. It's like,
You had 9, but
had 9, out of the 10. And, my concern is that everybody, is happy. But even that is like, in a way, it's none of my business whether they're happy or not. Now, I still would like to be, quote, fair. But as I started thinking about fairness, I started thinking about thoughts about different definitions of fairness, and how that you can really go down the rabbit hole in the intellect to try to describe what fairness is. And my solution was really just tune into my feelings. And my guidance gave me this little message, which I was setting up, which has said, sometimes why a person seems to receive something that someone else didn't get, there's a bigger picture spiritually. It could be another lifetime of healing. It could be lots of things, but in fact, I don't want to go into a lot of intellectual options. Mm-hmm. But the fact that that person got a certain feeling from having something, or felt reassured, or felt, which I may not relate to at all, but was important for that soul's journey. And so it really switched my thinking to want to be of service. And what was keeping me from just clearly feeling comfortable with that service? And I noticed, like, I have a little concept here or there, which I let go. And by letting it go, it didn't block the service, So whenever a fear moves in, like if I'm afraid I'm not going to attract what I need, then if there's a little bit of that in me, I can get caught in that confusion of that, we'll call it high C zone or C zone energy of, trying to define what's fair in all situations.
And so I guess that comes back to what you're talking about, being fair.
Yeah.
In different ways.
I mean, to spark off on the conversation, I mean, again, all of it, I brought those up, and I know it was a jumble. I'm throwing it at you, right? It's a common denominator. Something's happened there, common denominator. And that is an energy that's there in the front part of that. The sun hits there first, right? So that means I'm going to be feeling that, right? So the thing that I just want to add, right, and then, let's move on, but is I don't need a tragedy in order to change. That's what you're saying, right? I
Yes.
don't need a tragedy. I don't need to wait till something gets so bad that I have to change. And one of the things that stood out to me about that is I think ourselves, people listening to this, they're all going to be people who, generally speaking, are going to be feeling things way ahead, sensing things way ahead, that when a change needs to happen, they're going to know it. I'm going to know it early. And I don't need to wait for that big thing to happen in order for you to make, I can start making the change now if I'm sensitive to it. So that's the one thing that really stood out to me. And then I'm coming home. I keep coming home. And I've said this on other podcasts together, is I've always felt and have been trained this way, is that everything out there is to help me in here, inside, right? Everything outside is to help me on the inside. So for instance, I need to be the governor of my state of consciousness, right? And so everything, because I can't take any of that out there with me, none of it. As a matter of fact, if I try to do it, I'm caught. I'm going to be caught. And now I'm at the mercy. All my emotions come screaming out. And I was just regrouping, like all these stories are just a reflection, because when I get threatened, if I think I'm threatened,
Right.
if I think I'm threatened, and that's that whole thing of knowing the difference between my needs and wants, right? That my predecessor used to say, well, your needs are your physical survival and your spiritual. Those are your needs. Everything else is a want.
That makes sense.
When you boil it down, that's what we're talking about. So when I feel threatened about my car, I'm threatened about my money, I'm threatened about my partners, I am involved. I've confused my needs and wants. I've got them confused, and the wires have been crossed, right? Because I can only be threatened in my needs. That's otherwise. It's because my car, they mass produce those.
Yeah.
Right? Relationships. How many do you want? But
Yeah.
I know you say, well, I have this one true love and all this good stuff. But the truth is the more I grow spiritually, how many people do I want to love? It's no end. There's no end.
I was going to say that when I was sharing about, having that feeling of that threatened, like, oh, I'm not going to attract what I need.
Right.
Oh, if somebody else gets this really expensive thing, I might need that, those kinds of thoughts. Or in fact, sometimes the thoughts aren't even articulated that clearly. They're just kind of a little fear or a little.
Oh, that's the word I was going to say.
Yeah.
Fear.
So again, if I relax and I tune into service, I can work through it, because there's so many. Here's the thing. I realize, like, I'm not really responsible for anybody else's level of consciousness or their experience. And, in the family that I grew up in, there is a concept that runs around, like, who deserves this and who deserves that. And that's, to me, that can be kind of a religious concept about, that you find, right? The spiritual concept is, where's the need? Who needs the healing? Where is my need? So, and how can I be of service to the need? So it's not like being selfless in the sense of total self-denial, because it might be me that has that need. So then it's up to me to communicate what I need. But when the fears move in and I'm afraid to communicate, that's, the trouble. Anyways.
What were you going to say about
It was funny because I just love how these conversations, and we
full circle.
Yeah. And we like, it's almost like we have this word that's hanging above us. Yeah. And then, like, Spirit's like, okay, Tom, mention fear. And Teresa's already written down fear. Well, I just want to share about how, I noticed for myself that when those energies come in of fear or anxiety or the stresses, that's when it throws me off. And so being able to, back to my word of equilibrium, and in the stories you're sharing, finding that equilibrium within what's going on outside of me is key
Yeah.
for me to stay relaxed and for me to really be able to move through my days, because, we're all moving through a lot of stuff every day.
You know what else is interesting is that part of my solution is I'm going to have my siblings vote on an approach. And that reminds me of what you just said, and they may vote one way or they may vote another way, but I'm just going to go with the majority. And that's the way we're going to do it. And so we'll, redistribute what's left over.
Great story, Tiger.
The parliamentary, parliamentary process. Whether I think that's the best way or not, I'm going to accept where they want to go with it, where they want to take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to wrap that up, that's why it's so, for me, that's why it's so important for me to know what my needs are and what my wants are. Otherwise, I will feel, I may not like the way a vote happens,
right?
But I want to feel satisfied that my needs are met. That's the key. So that's what I hear you saying, is that I need to make sure that from the get-go, I know my needs are going to be met here. Because if that's not happening, I need a completely different strategy and a completely different direction. But if I get my needs met someplace, then it's okay, right? I can play the game, or I can say, well, I didn't really prefer that, but okay, we'll do that. So that's the key for me. All right, why don't we take a break and then we'll do another story.
Sounds good.
When you gravitate towards trust, life moves with more grace and ease. One way is staying in the now and mastering your inner world, those psychic perceptions that show up through feelings, knowings, hearing, and seeing. If you are ready for more clarity for your direction in life, by honoring your time and trust, check out the link in the show notes for our next Intuition Now Masterclass, where we explore your inner abilities and support you in getting your own answers and start trusting in yourself.
Well, here we are for the next story. What I wanted to talk about today is...
What's on your mind, Tom?
What's on my mind? Lots of things. But what I want to talk about today, I was looking at all the stories, and at this particular time, there's a lot of talk about the tariffs, and it's up and down and back and forth and so forth. But the thing that struck me was the stock market, and how there was a point earlier in the week where the stock market took a nosedive. And, that's a true concern that people have, because it's their retirement and their life savings and all that good stuff in their 401ks and so forth. Because that's the system we have here. We don't have, government pensions so much like other countries used to or might. And, I noticed myself that I was like, oh my God, look at that, dive in the stock market. There's a little fear can move in, like, what does that mean for the economy and that kind of thing. And of course, everybody plays up on the fear part of it to get us to listen.
Maybe that's why I wrote fear earlier too.
Yeah, that's another thing. So we just keep,
fear.
But it gets our attention. And what struck me was when I asked myself, where do I think things are really headed, or how do I feel about it? I actually have a lot of confidence in the future, and I have a lot of confidence in myself no matter what happens. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, as of today, the stock market has jumped back. It's climbed back up. It did, I think, the day before yesterday, and then today it's doing really well. And of course, the further out you go, like if you look at all time, it's way up over where it started. It's way up over the last 5 years. It's a little down maybe for the last year. It's up over the month now, or the week. Over the week, it's up, back up. Might be down over the month. But it's like when you look at the longer term picture, I mean, it's way bigger than it was several years ago, but more valuable.
I'm glad you brought that last part up, because that's where I was going to go. Because obviously, we're taking into consideration that the latest thing is the whole tariff thing, and that's affecting a lot of markets around the world, and not just the American market, and the stock market in different countries. They have their own version of that. But there's a great saying out there that, and I'm going to bastardize the saying, but in essence, it's the stock market is looking for an excuse to find balance. So the tariffs was just an excuse because there's so much in the American system right now. Everything's so overvalued.
Right.
It's just, and that's your point.
If you look at the true fundamentals of how they evaluate
it's
what a
looking,
stock's worth.
Everything is looking for an excuse to come back to that equilibrium, right? To find that balance. And the reverse is the true. So when everything gets undervalued, it's looking for the excuse to come back up, kind of thing. And so to me, what that's all about, when I look at those things from the bigger picture, if I'm just a day trader and that's my world, and I stay in that, my God, I'm going to be, running around with my head cut off,
Yeah.
But obviously everybody outgrows that, and then you start looking at the, what's going on this month and what's going on this year, and then all of a sudden your perspective changes, right? So, to me, bringing this home, number one is for me to not get my knickers in a twist about any one thing, right? That's one thing. But just from, you were saying this is a 16th, it's a number 7. The podcast is number 7. It's introspection, right?
Okay.
Introspection. Like, okay, I can get myself all spun up about outward things when in reality, my energy, my continuity is this nice, steady line, right, of evolution. And if I were to zoom in,
great picture there.
Yeah, if I were to zoom in on any specific part of that line, my continuity, I would see jagged edges,
ups and downs.
Yeah, ups and downs, because I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm having my masterful messes and my masterful successes, all that good stuff. So to me, that's what I bring it back to is I'm looking at the end of the day, the real me, the true I is looking for any excuse to find my equilibrium. I'm going to use whatever it takes to make sure I maintain my continuity, right? Whether I intellectually understand it or not, I'm going to be guided to certain things.
Yeah, it's interesting. But what comes up for myself around this is, and again, kind of back to your stories too, is having confidence in what's going on outside of me. And I've noticed recently that in people that I recognize I'm close to or interact with, or I just know, there's a naivety around what's going on in the world. And this really stems to how much do I understand about what's going on in my own realm. So we all have our realms. We all have our, this is my home and my journey. But if people don't find out facts or look deeper into things, there's really, you can't bitch too much. Honestly, because it's good to have both sides of the story and get some facts. And then for myself, which I've done so many times, is the feeling, right? Like when things happen with COVID and something came out and I'm like, that doesn't feel right. And I'm not going there. So I know for myself that my feeling space,
your sensitivity,
and my sensitivity is what really brings the confidence forward. But if I don't access that feeling gift within me, I'm lost, because I feel like I'm without my rudder, right? That really helps steer me forward. But being naive and not getting facts and just staying in your little box, so to speak, doesn't cut it, I don't feel, because you need to understand what's going on and get a bigger picture. Even like with the stock market. I mean, yeah, if you've been here a while, like we have, 50, 60 years, or 60 decades, 60 decades, 6 decades, you recognize it goes up and down, depending upon if the wind blows the right way, if a person farts the opposite way. I mean, like literally anything that can just make it sheep, right? Yes. Yeah. So, recognizing for myself, this is what's really coming up for me, is that, I need to get my facts. Yeah. I need to understand what's going on. I don't need to be involved in it all the time, but I need to know what's going on in the world. And that's why these stories are really cool. And I just was like, oh, they kind of come together for myself. in that confidence and what's going on outside of me and how am I relating that. And being a spiritual, person and understanding that unseen parts of us, that's been my godsend. Because until then, I was pretty lost. That hot energetic mess that I talk about quite often.
Yeah.
It's much more subdued now, right, Tom? Because once in a while you're like, damn.
Sometimes.
Usually.
So
Except for when
I'm
it's not.
glad you brought that story up, because I was like, stock market. I don't want to talk about the stock market, but it comes together. It all
I
comes
love
together.
the analogy of that's like my soul's growth, because there's times, where I feel like I've mastered something and I'm feeling really good, and then it seems like I, can take a few steps back and then make some more progress forward. But overall, if I look at a 10-year journey or a 10 lifetime journey, I bet I'd be like, holy smokes, look how far I've come,
Right.
in the overall scheme of things. And what I hear you saying, Teresa, too, is, or what stimulates for me from your sharing was how, if I get into that mode of self-protectionism,
Yeah.
where I'm not,
Turtle in the shell.
I don't want to get the facts. I don't want to find out. I want it to be this little comfy picture I've got. I want to stick with the drama that I feel I deserve. I need to live with this drama, because then somehow I've got, it's an emotional concept that I'm self-denial. I suffered, so I deserve something, and that kind of thing. But I guess those are the couple of
just to
thoughts.
that
Yeah.
very inspirational. You're reminding me, and you said the turtle in the shell, right? I wrote that down because I feel it, but I'll keep my head pulled in, right? I don't. The Aussies and the New Zealanders talking about you got your head buried in the sand, kind of thing, and I need to remember that I committed to a bigger picture by coming here.
Yeah.
I committed to a bigger picture, and it's easy to say that when I'm everything's hunky dory, but when I see my retirement start to go down, my 401k start to tank, it's like,
Right.
I'm freaking out. But I think why I'm bringing that up is because I can get threatened by the wrong things. And I need to always remember that my job here is to be of service. My job doesn't end at 5 p.m. when I punch out at work. My job ends when I go to sleep and I go up and regroup and have that renewal so I'm ready for the next day. That's the punch out. And otherwise, meaning my job, if I'm going to have an investment, my job is to be of service and be sensitive of what I want to invest in, right? So to, they say diversify and all that good stuff, but it doesn't matter. My job is to put it in, right? Feed it. Feed what I want to build. Keep feeding feed my routines, feed my partners, feed my body. I'm here so that I can do something with it. And if I get caught into one thing that, oh no, this is going down, or that becomes my focus and my world, rather than remembering, no. All of this is my world, right? I mean, there's a technique, we did, ages ago, where you're meant to go and walk out. This is in Sydney. You're meant to go walking out on the beach and own the beach.
Oh.
This is your beach. You have people that you're allowing to be on it. This is your beach. What does it feel like to have your own beach, right? And to just let that feeling come through. And so, and it really does, if you've never done it, but it's a pretty cool little thing, because it does snap you into force me into the bigger picture. But the coming home this is my opportunity, my life. And if I'm feeling something, I need to address it up front. That goes back to what we're talking about. I don't need a crisis to make a change. If I'm starting to feel something, why don't I do it on that front end? Why don't I start incorporating, right? That's the last part about it was
I'm so glad you mentioned about showing up, because lately that's been a big thing. I've recognized that people will complain about their lives or what they're going through, or the relationships they have. And I'm like, dude, you signed up for this.
Yeah.
Like, if you are here in a body, you signed up for this journey. And I don't know, it was a while back, I remember talking to someone, they were like, on the other side, there are souls like wanting to get in here. Like, this is a highly desirable planet, highly desirable place to learn and grow and expand yourself. And so enjoy it while we're here. So I don't know why it's really come up for me lately a lot about, just really being present, enjoying the journey, and also honoring where everybody's at, because everyone's at different levels of consciousness and awareness, but relating to the journey of what we're here to do.
Yes.
And we're here right now. Super exciting.
I love that you said that, because I had written down perfect for what I came to learn.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about that. We mentioned that every other podcast. And so as I was looking at this opportunity to be of service, to my siblings in terms of my dad's estate, is that, the traditional thoughts were like, oh my God, somebody's going to be upset. They didn't get this. It doesn't, we can't do it evenly, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that's just confusion, I guess, just to say it again. And I went, gosh, I wish they gave it all away before, and I found myself thinking some of these things and even making little sideways comments, then I didn't have to work. And I think, how often do people do that? How often have I done that? Like, oh my God, I don't want this opportunity. I'm going to have to suffer through it, and everybody, going to be unhappy. But it's perfect for what I came to learn. I'm in this situation with these people, these souls, and it's all I have to do. And I really did this time, like, really respect myself, as I just said, okay, here's my overall goal. Now I'm open to the insights that I get. And I'm sure for some listeners, some of the ahas I had, they may already know that, and they would have handled it like, oh, okay, you just do this and I just do that, and it's more obvious. But I can tell for me, it's new ground, or it's ground that I'm reinforcing for myself spiritually. And once I worked with my guidance and got a couple of key insights, I'm like, aha, wow, now I'm enthusiastic about going through this experience.
Right.
So that's all I wanted to share about that.
Great story.
Good stories.
Are we going to take a quick break? And we'll be right back for Teresa's story.
Rock and roll.
When you arrived back, you were enthusiastic to be here. If you've lost some of that enthusiasm, there's a way to reawaken it. It's by embracing a bigger spiritual picture of your life as a soul and igniting the feeling of freedom within. If you're ready and needing some more enthusiastic mojo for yourself, then follow the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Way Showers College, and get ready to start feeling more clarity, hope, and freedom within. Okay, ready for some inspiration?
I am ready.
Let's go to Africa.
Africa.
Africa. So I found this story from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. And it's about an African-born mobility startup that provides women the catalyst to drive change in their community and society. And how they do this is by these solar-powered vehicles called Hamba, Hamba. They're durable electric tricycles, and it helps them get around faster. They're more mobile. They're able to do commerce. They're able to, like, I saw one video where one lady someone was sick and she got to her quick. These vehicles go over terrain, like, back in the bush, and they're actually safer than walking for women. And so it's given women an empowerment. So that's the piece that I really want to bring in, is that they're also leased a month. So they don't own them, but they're leasing them for like $15 a month. So it's very, very low, leasing. But the empowerment of these women in this village and this area of Zimbabwe. So what do you feel about that, Tiger?
I mean, I saw the story, and so those carts are, when you think about a little bit of those bustling cities in those regions, you do see those little carts. You even see some of those similar in Asia, There's some of those that got the three wheels.
Ricochets, rickets. There's
Yeah.
our name.
Yeah. And so I like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing there. These little vehicles. I, you know, the thing that really popped out to me is more opportunity. You know, that's the big thing. And the other part of it that I was taken with is how, if there's something going on, like they're supporting, they're utilizing, because there's a big push right now for those EVs, electric vehicles, and to work with those kinds of things. I didn't do the story on this time, but like, you know, China has this unbelievable EV cars, and several of them, and they're like really ahead.
Well, that's interesting because they're building a lot of coal plants. So what's that all about?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a different story. But the my point is that there's a lot of energy going into that right now. That is to say, there's things going, and so this group has found a way to tap into what's flowing through right now and utilize that to help people. In this case, the ladies there. And so to me, it comes back to where there's so much empowerment that can happen beyond just what I'm doing if I commit to playing the game, working with what's available to me. And now I can help so many people because I'm in that rhythm. I'm not trying to be above planet Earth, or I'm not caught up in it. I'm working with it. And so to me, this is just a great story about, all right, someone said, hey, we're getting this here. We're able to use these little miniature EV things, right? And
well, they're
I'm going to
solar
help.
powered,
Solar power, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so what they would.
Because EV is not electric.
Well, it is. So the solar power would have to mean that
Is
it's some kind of electric component of it.
Okay.
But maybe they're hybrids or something. But the point is that they're getting energy from the sun,
right?
And there's obviously energy for that. That is to say, there's a movement for that we're in right now. We're going to see a lot more of that for a while, right? But by being involved with something, anything, I can help a lot of people. If I have, this goes back to our earlier stories we were talking about, if I'm involved in that bigger picture, if I'm not caught in survival, there's no limit to what I'm capable of. There's no limit to what my sisters and brothers can do, which also, the last point I wanted to bring up before we pass the baton here is, how many excuses do I give myself? How many, what were you saying earlier? Not excuses, but what's whatever you were saying, basically, in essence, I'm sensitive to where I'm giving myself an excuse to play a certain game.
Is it blame?
Blame. You were talking about blame.
Oh, I was talking about blame.
Right? It's like, what am I going to get involved in today? Right? And so there's the potential, this little thing of helping some people, the energy is there. All I got to do is do something with it. And now people can get something out of it. So that's what stood out to me, is just being able to utilize what's there, and then I can be of service to myself and people.
What about you, Tom?
Well, I love the idea. I wonder what the business model is. Was the government going to supply these to people, or are they?
Well, it's a startup, so it's a
startup company.
It's a startup company.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things that what I was picking up that's interesting. So you said I didn't catch that, but
I guess like what are those ones we have in America? They're called they're like that, where they have like people put so much money before it, and then like a startup.
Yeah, it's a startup.
You got the right.
You have it.
That's it. So when you look at a startup and you look at the service and the business, you can ask yourself, in the long run, will this, be a viable business venture, is what was coming to me. And I'm wondering why I'm thinking about it. And why I'm thinking about it is, well, it doesn't matter. It's just a chance for souls to be of service, to explore an avenue that can help people. And, we really make a lot of harsh judgments about what works and what doesn't work. and who's doing it, as opposed to just enjoy the fact that you have opportunity, to help people, give opportunity. And so that's what I hear that story is all about. And, as Tiger said, you can tune into that feeling of like, we're helping these, ladies, and it's a novel idea. And there's like a lot of enthusiasm, one of our favorite words, in that. And in that enthusiasm is, energy to move forward and do good work, and to work every day at, seeing that occur.
Yeah, I think what really hit me on this one is that the ability, like that ripple effect, like everything's changing right now. So the ripples are going out to the villages now. Like that's big. Like you're saying, New Zealand, that sunrise down New Zealand, then it spreads across Australia from there. So, and there was definitely some stories in this thing. I don't know if you read all of them or looked at the video. So there's one about a lady who said, we get up at we used to get up at 3 a.m. and travel long distances, and like for hours and hours to get somewhere, where now these vehicles, they actually go 37 miles per hour. That's pretty speedy.
Oh yeah.
And so, they can go back and forth. And also the thing about, they feel they can actually like be around a round table now with men and talk about situations.
Yeah.
And some of these women are actually breadwinners in their family. So just that empowerment and that ability to uplift a situation where, how many decades, how many hundreds of thousands of years, I don't know, but a long time, it's been a desolate area where, they probably carried the baskets on their head, the babies on the back or the front, and went forward. And it was a whole different realm than what it is now. So I was just so excited when I saw this, and I wanted to bring it forward. I thought this would be a very inspirational story in the sense of the massive change we're constantly talking about every week, and how that's rippling into the jungles and into parts of Africa, and who knows, it's probably down into Brazil and other places too. Like everywhere, there's nowhere that's immune to feeling this change. But when these inspirational stories hit, and I find them, like, oh, I just want to share that. So I was so excited. Is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah. Just if I want more people to have change, I need to just remember, it sounds like a broken record, but find ways to be of service, and find ways for people to be of service. Because, whether we good, bad, or ugly, we like it or not, there are a lot of cultures that are just going to have certain traditions and see a male role in a certain way and a female in another way. And some of it is oppressive, some of it is really supportive. It's just, that's different levels of consciousness, So that kind of thing can shift a little when there's more opportunity and there's to be of service. Meaning that if these ladies start providing more and more service with these this is now the excuse to be more of service, all of a sudden it becomes indispensable, right? So the natural rights start coming up, as opposed to the suppression of things, right? My way or the highway. Well, now if I do this and I want to go play back my old game, I'm actually hurting myself, because those ladies are, if it's a guy who's saying that, right? Well, those ladies are providing all this service. I'd be hurting myself if I try to cut that off, right? So that energy of service is so powerful. And I've said it before, business is a tremendous neutralizer of confusion, of problems. Right? If there was more business, and I don't mean this to say like, oh yeah, maybe hardcore capitalists or some crap like that. I'm just saying business, there would be less war, because you work shit out, right? You work stuff out.
Because you want to do business.
Because you want to do business, right? You want to be of service. That's where the energy is. So that the empowerment is really connected to how much I can be of service and inspire other people to be of service. And the last thing is what you brought up. If I'm not having fun, I'm doing it wrong. And that's my wrap up for this, is that I need to be connected and focused on the pace of the soul. The pace of the soul, me, the real me. And when I'm working with other people, the pace of their needs, right? Because otherwise it's very easy for me to get caught in little picture, or I get stimulated with something. And I can tell you, just even for myself, it happens to me where there's something I don't like and there's nothing I can do about it, right? And then I'll start chewing on it, right? Or there's something I don't like and there is something I can do about it, but I won't do a thing about it. I'll sit there and chew on it. But if I tune into the pace of the soul, in other words, going back to what you said about why am I here? There are many souls that haven't or would love to, but haven't organized themselves to be here. And if I forget that, if I let myself get pulled into that small picture, then there's not going to be any of this opportunity. Because someone somewhere decided to say, let's do something, this startup, and now look at what's happening, right? Good, bad, or ugly, however you feel about it, something's happening, and it gives more and more opportunity. So if I'm not having fun, I'm doing it wrong.
As the Earth's crust shifts and changes, our lives do the same. One way to maneuver through the small and large moments that shake us to the core is by reviving your connection to spirit, gathering ways to cleanse your energy field, embracing spiritual awarenesses to give you a bigger picture, and knowing that you are not alone on your journey can be a great support. The Soulquake Survival Guidebook is a great companion to meet you where you're at and support reviving your connection to spirit in earth-shaking times. Get your copy today through Amazon Worldwide in paperback, ebook, or in audio, and begin embracing more clarity, inner peace, and enthusiasm for your life and what you've come to do.
Well, the key word that came to me when you're talking was uplifting.
Yeah.
So these women are uplifting their needs of their soul. Just like I think about, like for myself, I was in my first marriage where I did nothing of the finances. He did everything. And so now I was put into a role where I'm actually in accounting, learning about finances, learning about Tom laughs, but it's a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it is. It's no question, because I need to understand about that part of my journey, which I've lacked for decades.
Yeah.
So these women are understanding about how to work commerce, how to get out of the house, how to move down the, go 5 miles down the road in 5 minutes versus, 5 hours. So it's a need of the soul. So I'm glad you said that about uplifting. So Tom, you got last thing you want to say about this one?
Yeah. And well, what's interesting is it's really not the intellectual part of accounting. It's learning to balance my inflow with my outflow.
Oh my God, you're so right. You're so right.
But I think we'll save that for another episode because that's
other one. That's something else. We'll regroup
on
that another
enthusiastic spiritual. We can regroup that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's a biggie. That's the last thing you want to say?
Yeah, my overall experience was you were talking about giving opportunity, and my thrust is to be happy and free. And I realized, I need to give opportunity to be happy and free. And that's how I was attacking, you might say, or I'm approaching that new project that I've got, is to give opportunity to be happy and free.
So that was 4 months worth of talking. Okay, so let's talk about what's your take on this episode, Tom? The commonalities, the things that we shared about.
Well, my take on it is that, as usual, per usual, when we come up with what's on our mind and the stories that are in the news, I'm not clear how they relate, except for that I have enough experience with this that I'm sure that it's all going to relate. And all I have to do is just share what I'm putting together for myself. I'm all of a sudden I'm going, Jesus, that's what I was working on this week. What Tiger's sharing about traditions, for example, that keyword, and letting go of traditions or reevaluating those traditions, and taking another look at it. And then, the fear with the stock market and balancing inflow and outflow and all the revelations. Anyways, it never ceases to amaze me how and what you were talking about, as well, what some of the highlights for your week and how everything's perfect and you're learning about blame. And so all we're doing is living our lives, working with spirit, regrouping our experiences, and then identifying kind of what's got my interest this week, because nothing else really got my interest but
and it was a perfect thing.
And it was a perfect thing. Yeah.
What about you, Tiger?
Yeah, my wrap up would be we are in tumultuous times.
Tumultuous. Capital T.
In case you hadn't noticed.
Yeah, in case you hadn't noticed.
Tiger, and Teresa. Hey, that's another T.
Another T?
Tumultuous.
And so that means that there's going to be ups and downs. I'm going to have ups and downs. There's going to be things that are challenged, and there's going to be traditions, and there'll be new things. All of this is ripe for me to make the moves I need to make. When there's good times everywhere, the status quo becomes difficult to move past. It's like, because it's just everything. Nobody wants anything to move. Everything's really nice.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Feels good. That's right. I'm nice, comfy in my couch.
Watching Netflix.
I don't want to lose what I have.
That's
I'm
right.
afraid to take.
That's right. But when
moves.
things start shifting, it can bring fear, which is what you brought up, the fear. But it also spiritually allows me to make my moves and shifts easier because there's not so much more ingrained stuff around me. That is to say, there's not as many thoughts to push me back. There's not as many people worried or in opposition to me because they're too busy worried about themselves, right? So it gives me a little bit more freedom to say, this is my spiritual goal this month, or this is my material goal this month. This is my spiritual goal this year. This is my material goal this year. It allows me to move a little bit freer amongst all the shifting so I can make my own movement. So that's one thing, is this just the amazing times we're in, and not to be afraid to challenge my own traditions. Doesn't mean to unearth what works for me, but just to make sure that I'm testing myself a little bit. Let's not make sure my routines, right? I go brush my teeth, and every morning I do this, every night I cleanse, and before I go to sleep and set my energy, this kind of thing. That maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, if not certainly once a year, no later than that. I need to kind of regroup the big picture. Are these routines helping me? Has my routine turned into a tradition? Is this becoming dogma now for me? Or is this actually something that's healthy for me and I'm working forward? So that's one thing. And then the other two are really just making sure I maintain the big picture in that, of who I am, where I came from, where I'm going, and remembering, to your point, everything's opportunity. I am... The life on planet Earth is the blinking of the eye and the time span of eternity. I am here for a very short amount of time. When you really take consideration to all the things, I'm here just a little speck on something. So I need to claim my opportunity. And if I'm willing to make that decision and remind myself of that decision on a routine basis, I will not take anything for granted. And if I do take something for granted, I will find my way out of whatever problems I get into. It'll be smoother for me. So those things that we're talking about, that nice, the jagged edges won't be jagged edges. They'll just be kind of ups and downs, right? More of a flow. So it's when I'm caught and I get confused is when the jagged edges come in for me. When I get caught, but I'm still aware of the big picture, I can kind of move a little bit smoother out of those situations. So that's my thing.
That's it. Yeah, for myself, I would say I'm in awe, kind of like Tom's saying about how everything I've done in the week kind of comes to our plate here, kind of comes to our table, and there's some pieces of it show up. So it's just like we do with our classes in Tuition Now, and recognizing that is trying to make this practical. We're moving through all this space and time, and it changes, and everything's going on, and we're sharing all these different, scenarios. But it's all about just being practical and just being in these bodies and enjoying it. So I don't know about you guys. I'm loving this camaraderie, loving this connection with spirit, because there's nothing like it. It's pretty amazing, because I swear it's so funny how I wrote down fear, Tom wrote down something, we all had this, and you wrote down turtle and I said turtle, all these things that we do together. It's just amazing. And this is how it works when you are connected, and I am connected to spirit and working it. So rock on. And here's to
making it practical.
Over 4 months, right? Next one will be over 4 months. So cheers. Till next time.
All right.
To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.